Hey, hi everyone. Hi Murli. Hi Lohita, Pallavi, Marcos. Hi Manoj, Anbu. Hi Tim. Hi Bhavesh, Mohammed, Sandeep. Hi Krishnaveni, Prashant, Kanishka, Dolly, Adarsh, Sandrine. Hi. Okay, so nice to see you all. So we have 40 learners. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Sorry, Okay. Um, okay, so has everyone tried to solve the assignment that I gave in the last session? Okay. So were you guys able to solve it? Like not only yesterday's like last class, but also all the other assignments. How do you feel? Like because we are now this is going to be the last week of our class. Generally, right? So before everyone joins, like what is your how do you feel? Like do you feel SQL is okay? Are you able to solve SQL queries on your own? And what about SQL queries that I have given? Of course, I cannot be solving and giving you every single type of SQL queries that you can get. But if you have done some practice on maybe Stata Scratch or Lead Code or the Learn the Learn SQL platform course that I had given, the free one that I had given last time, are you able to now? Do you have the confidence that you can solve SQL queries on your own? Do you get the thinking and the idea behind how to solve it? Okay, so Manoj, this is your first class. Then Manoj, you can stay for this class, but I'll be taking a different concept today. But I would recommend that you watch the recording from the first session. Okay. Okay. So Bhavesh is very confident. Uh, Tim, okay. So you are practicing. That's good. Definitely very helpful course. Okay, that's good. Kanishka, mostly yes. Yes, learned a lot from your session. Thanks. Okay, feel very helpful. Okay, I feel more confident while looking at the problems now. Okay, that's good, right? Even it was the same for me when I started my career. I joined a company where they already had, so they were using Java and Oracle. Okay, to build, they were building some ETL tool, like in-house ETL tool, and my very first project was basically working on a. I was actually very lucky. Generally, when you join in a new company, you kind of don't get into a new project. You kind of get into an already existing project where you need to do some bug fixing and everything. The very first project that I got was to develop an AML. We had a ETL tool already developed. We needed to add a new module into that AML. Okay, but even if since it was a new project, I still needed to look at the code that was already written, and many times the packages, the procedures which were written were thousands of lines long. The queries that they had written was it was too complex. There were too many complex queries. Okay, so initially I was very scared, but then when after I did my certifications, and it was not just a certification, I learned a lot of stuff. Then it was like whenever I look at a problem, it doesn't scare me. Okay, I know that if I look at a problem for a few minutes, I will understand what is happening. Okay, and I think that one you'll only get with the more you learn, the more confident you'll become. And I'm very happy that you guys are feeling the same. Haven't tried the 17th assignment. Okay, no problem, you can try it after this class. Sorry, I think I have um, getting thought process how to solve. Okay, that's good, Sandeep. Good course. Thank you. Okay, that's good. More confidence to understand the problem, but still struggling to get the right output to practice mode. Yes, I think this will happen. You cannot expect that a course which just teaches you for 20 sessions, you'll suddenly be able to solve every single problem, right? No one can do that. Okay. So you need to practice more, and there are so many now. There are so many platforms where you can practice. When I was getting started, basically there is no platform. The only way I learned was by looking at the code that was available in my company, right? We did not have all the platforms that you have today to learn SQL, okay, or for that matter any programming language. How do you analyze a complex query in existing project? What are the different techniques to follow? Actually, okay, so maybe this can be something that I will do. I'll do a video about. I want to find a SQL query which might be like 200 lines long or something like that, which has multiple subqueries with clauses, different functions, different user-defined functions used, and many other things. Okay, so uh, because this question was asked to me by someone else as well. They were working in the testing field, and as part of the QA field, right, they sometimes need to analyze some existing code. Okay, and they were finding difficult to understand existing code. Maybe I'll make a video about that because I need a sample query for that. Okay, let me think about that, Ramesh. Um, I joined correct window. Okay, if this is your first class, then no problem. You can watch this session, but then watch the entire recording from the first session. Okay, help me how to solve the problem as I understood better what I already knew. Okay, that's good. What are the other things that we need to require to learn with SQL? Whatever I have covered in this session, if you learn this much of SQL, I think you are pretty good. Okay, of course there will be a lot more because every programming language, no one can cover everything about a programming language in a course, but this should give you 90% of what you need for SQL. Okay. How do you get into IT? What was your first position? So my first position was I got into IT just after my college. It was just through campus. The company had come for college, and I got campus recruited. And my first role was I actually got trained in Java initially. Okay, I got trained in Java and in SQL both together. But we had a test after 3 months of training, and then I did well in SQL and I did not do well in Java. So my company put me into the role of PLSQL developer. So I started my career as a PLSQL developer. Someone shared 8weekschallenge.com, this excellent resource, one of the best case study and example to practice. Yes, I think this is from Danny. Data with Danny is someone, right? Yeah, I think it's good. Okay, you can definitely use that. No plan to move to Singapore, but some other country. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start. I just want to say that in today's session, right, I'm going to be starting with procedures and stored procedures and user defined functions. Okay, so let's try to understand this. I'll try to take a small use case. Okay, and then we will try to build a procedure and a user defined function on that. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so you guys can see my screen, right? Okay, so for this particular, maybe I'll create a new database. Or I can use existing ones, SQL queries. Maybe I'll create new ones. So I'll just call it like product with purchase. It's something like this. Okay. So I have this product purchase database. Let me open a session here. Okay. So let me create the initial tables first. Okay, so let me create the data set. Okay. So I'll explain you this data set a little later. But first of all, can anyone tell me from your own words, what do you think? What is a stored procedure? Okay, so let's start with stored procedure. Okay, does anyone know what exactly is a stored procedure? Any idea? It's like function set of code executes sequentially. Okay, it's a it's programming collection of SQL statements. Procedure is a collection of functionalities. A program that executes when it's called. Reusable SQL code can be called for various data sets on demand, mm, like a function but in SQL. Function which takes input and gives calculated values. You can call and reuse the code pre-compiled. Okay. Uh, so most of your guys thinking is right. Okay. In the most simplest of terms. Okay. So what is procedure? Right. In the most simplest of terms, it is it is a block of code. Okay. Or in other words, it is a named block of code, okay, which can be, okay, this may be, it's self-explanatory. Okay, but in the most simplest of terms, if anyone asks you what is a procedure in an interview or anywhere, okay, you can just tell it is a, basically what is a procedure. It has some code, right? And the code can be, it can be an SQL query, it can be inside a procedure, you can call another procedure, or inside a procedure you can call another function. Okay, you can have lot of other things, like you can loop through the data using a loop statement. You can have some cursors, you can have some variables, you can have collections type called, and there are so many different features of PLSQL that you can use inside a procedure. Okay, many people think that procedure is basically a particular program where you can use, where you can write multiple SQL queries, and you can so use, just by executing one procedure, all these multiple SQL queries can get executed, and that is not wrong. Okay, a lot of people use procedure for that purpose. Okay, but procedure can do a lot more than just running SQL queries. Okay, now, so we'll see with an example. Okay, of course I cannot cover, I will not be writing a procedure which uses all different functionalities, because then for that I'll need to take a separate course on PLSQL. Okay, but I'll tell you, as a, in the most common forms, where how do you use a procedure. Okay, now before that I just want to ask you, does anyone know what is PLSQL? What is PLSQL, or what is the difference between PLSQL and SQL? Anyone? Stored procedural language. Okay, nope. Okay, so I think in okay, so generally what happened was, SQL was, I think, introduced around what, 20-25 years back or something. Okay, um, but using SQL, you basically write SQL queries, right, for whatever you want to do. Whenever you want to fetch the data, analyze the data, or extract the data, build reports, or whatever it is, you generally need to write SQL queries. Okay, but there are certain requirements where you will not be able to solve a particular problem just by using SQL queries. You may have to do some additional things. Okay, so not everything can be done using SQL queries. Okay, and that is why I think many years back, they came up with something called as an extension to SQL. Okay, so SQL is already there, it does all of these fantastic things. Okay, but there are few things that SQL cannot do. Now, in order to give more power to SQL, they came up with a procedural language for SQL. Okay, so what is a procedural language for SQL is, it's basically an extension over SQL, or kind of like just giving additional power to for SQL. Okay, so in procedural language, we got some additional objects like procedures, user defined functions, collections, and loopings and the loop statements and etc. Okay, cursors and etc. Okay, so what this using the PLSQL, you can write SQL, but you can also write additional things like a procedure, mainly a procedure. Okay, because sometimes in your requirement you may have to write a code, okay, where you need to first extract the data from the database, okay, and depending on the data you may need to do certain operations like maybe some DML operations or DDL operations or something. And once you have done that, then you will need to again extract data from some other table and then display the final output. Okay, now in order to do these steps, okay, first step is to extract the data from the database. Based on what data you have got, you do some DML or DDL operations. Okay, once you have done this DML and DML and DDL operations, you then again query the data maybe from the same table or some multiple tables and then return the output. Okay, three different steps. Okay, you basically would not be able to even if you have to write it, you will have to write it maybe multiple different statement, and executing it all at once would not be possible. Okay, but if you put everything together into a procedure, then you can do it in one step. Okay, and then anyone who wants to execute it, they could just execute the procedure. Okay, and this is just example. There are a lot of things that we can do in a procedure. Okay, so if anyone asks you what is PLSQL, okay, you can just tell it is an extension, or it's an extension language over SQL. It's kind of like a giving a procedure. It's like a, so the full form is procedural language of SQL. Okay, so things that you cannot do in SQL, you can do it using PLSQL. Okay, mainly in PLSQL, the additional features that were introduced were procedures, stored functions, stored procedures, user-defined functions, cursors, and etc. Okay, in the most simplest of terms, of course you can get the proper definition in Google. Okay, now procedure, what is a procedure? It's a named block of code. Okay, now what happens is, if you have a piece of so let's say you want to build a logic. Okay, you have some user interface. Okay, you are building a website or you are building some application. Okay, and let's say you are building an application for uh, Apple website. Okay, so when you go to an Apple store and let's say you want to buy the latest iPhone 14. Okay, uh, what happens is you go and you tell that you want to buy an iPhone 14. Okay, so generally what is the first thing that the store people have to do is they need to first check, and let's say you tell that I want to buy two iPhone 14s and of blue color. Okay, something like that, and you'll give the specification 128 GB and whatever you will give it. Okay, the first thing that the store person has to do is he needs to go into his system. Okay, and he will have an application where he needs to kind of search that, does the store have two iPhone 14s with blue color with 128 GB of space and everything. Okay, so they will enter these details in the system and then they will click a submit button, for example. Okay, and then it is going to tell you back that whether um, this particular product, that is iPhone 14, exists in that store or not. Okay, is it available or is it out of stock? Okay, something like that, right? So generally what happens is when they click submit, okay, it will internally, I'm just giving an example. I don't think so Apple is using I don't know what software Apple is using. Maybe they will use Java or something. Okay, I don't know, but there are many applications, especially the financial applications, where they mainly use all of this. Okay, procedures, packages, and everything. And for this example, let's say when they click submit, it will internally call a procedure. That procedure will do few different things. First of all, the procedure will maybe procedure or maybe a stored function. Okay, so in this case, since the requirement is only to check. Okay, so since the Apple employee just wants to check if the requirement from the customer is available in the store or not, they will it that when they click submit, it might call a function. That stored function will then check, it will query the data from the table. Okay, with the exact specification that the customer wants, and if there is any available product. Okay, and basically when I say available product, it's going to go to the database, because there will be a database and there might be a table, something like products. Okay, where they will tell how many quantities are remaining with this specification. Okay, if there is available quantity, then it's going to return true. If not, it's going to tell that stock not available. Okay, so something like this happens in the backend. Okay, now this is just to check if the product is available or not. Okay, but let's say when he checked, it comes that yes, the product is available. Okay, then the customer will tell yes, I want to buy it. Okay, when they say they want to buy it, then the store owner, the store employee might ask for additional information about the employee, like about the customer, like his name, his address, and everything, right? So then they click submit again to purchase that product. And when they purchase that product, there are a few different things that needs to happen in the database, because as soon as someone purchases the product, let's say your store is having 100 available iPhones. Okay, as soon as this, let's say this customer has bought two iPhones, it should immediately update that two iPhones are sold. So the quantity remaining from 100 should now reduce to 98, right? And it should also add a new record into the transaction table. There will always be a transaction table, right? So that is on, let's say, what is the date today? 14 September at 8 p.m. This transaction happened where the customer bought two products with this specification. Okay, so these are the things that will internally happen in the database. Okay, and how does it happen? It might happen through a procedure. Okay, because there are a few different steps that you need to do. You need to insert data into a order sales table, you need to update the products table, you need to check the availability in some other table, etc., etc. So different things needs to happen. And then I'm just giving a simple example. In the real application, there will be a lot of different things will happen. Okay, so when you have multiple things to happen, you generally put it inside a procedure, and when that UI will call a submit, it might internally call a procedure, and the procedure will do all of these things for you. Okay, and within a second or so, it will return the statement telling that the product is sold. Okay, if the product is sold message comes, that means that everything went well and all the database tables have been updated properly. Okay, and let's say if something went wrong, it might give an error message saying that error, unable to sell the product or something like that. Okay, now I'm just giving you a use case. I hope this makes sense for you guys. Okay, why do you need something like a procedure, and why do you need something like a user defined function? Okay, now let's try to better understand this with this. Let's try to actually build this kind of procedure. Okay, so in order to explain this, I have two tables that I have created. I have one table called products. Okay, let me know if you can see it. I hope you can see it now. Okay, so the product table has a product code, the name of the product, the price of the product, quantity remaining, and quantity sold. Okay, so here I can see that the product code is P1 and this product is iPhone 13 Pro Max. Okay, the price of the iPhone 13 Pro Max is $1,000. Okay, quantity remaining, so they are telling 5 iPhones are still remaining and 195 have been sold. Okay, now this is the products table, and then I have a sales table which basically has information. Every time there is a sale that is happening in the store, one record needs to get inserted into the sales table, right? So here it's telling that on 10th Jan 2022, 100 iPhones were sold for this much amount. Okay, and on 20th Jan, 50 iPhones were sold. On 30th, on 5th February, 45 iPhones were sold. Okay, now let's say we have a requirement where we need to do this. Okay, so this is procedural language for, okay, so I think this PG PLSQL or something. I don't know what so this PLSQL is general terminology we use for IBM database and for Oracle database, I think. And in um, in PostgreSQL, I think the terminology might be different. Okay, but generally we always refer to it like PLSQL. Okay, now let's say we have a problem statement where for every iPhone 13 Pro Max sale, modify the database accordingly. Okay, now you have heard my explanation. Can anyone tell me, when I have this kind of a requirement, what are the different things that I need to do here? Anyone? So SQL is a subset of PLSQL. Okay, you can tell it. Okay, so you can have SQL code inside a PLSQL block. So update the inventory. Okay, update products and add records to sales, shipping details, send to shipping department. Okay, update inventory and decrease the stock after purchase, payment information sent. Okay, okay, perfect. So I think you guys are right. Okay, so let's try to build a procedure for this, because they are telling that whenever there is a sale that is happening, I need to modify the database tables accordingly. Okay, so when they say database tables accordingly, looks like as soon as a product has been purchased, okay, I need to reduce the quantity remaining accordingly based on how many products were purchased, and the quantity sold needs to increase accordingly, right? And also for every sale that happens, I need to add a transaction record here into the sales table, right? So two different things. Okay, now I'm using PostgreSQL here, so I'll try to create all of this using PostgreSQL first, but I'll also explain you what is the difference in syntax. The concept, everything is the same across all the database, but the syntax is slightly different in different databases. So I'll show you the syntax. And actually, in the last class, I forgot to show you the syntax for recursive SQL queries in other databases. Okay, maybe at the end I'll show you that. Okay. Um, so in order to create a procedure, the simple statement is create or replace procedure. Okay, and I can just give a name. Okay, I'll just tell pr underscore product sales. Okay, and let's say I'm not going to have any parameters for now. I'll tell you what parameters are a little later. Okay, so this is the statement here. This is basically you are telling that create or replace the procedure. I'll tell you what this or replace stands for a little later. And I generally, when I'm creating a procedure, I give like this kind of prefix, okay, pr underscore, and then what exactly this procedure does, okay, just to make it meaningful. If I was creating a function, then I would use like fn underscore, okay, something like that. It's just the terminology that I use. When you work on a different projects, they have different terminologies on what should be the prefix for each object that you create. Okay, you just need to follow that. Okay, so this is the initial statement, and then here I need to tell create or replace procedure name, and I need to, so in PostgreSQL there is one additional command that you need to give. That is, whenever you are creating a procedure or a function, you need to specify to the database in which language are you writing this procedure, in which programming language are you writing this procedure. Okay, for other RDBMS you don't need to have this statement, but in PostgreSQL you need to say. Okay, and I think the language is PLPG Okay, or is it PGPLSQL? Okay, I'm not sure what exactly is the name. We'll see later. Okay, so I think procedural language PostgreSQL. Okay, and this is what I think this stands for. So you need to specify that this procedure I am writing it in the PLSQL language. Okay, so that is this, and then I need to say my as clause. Okay, and then here I need to have something like a double star here, sorry, double dollar here. Okay, and I'll tell you why you need this. Okay, but before I tell you why you need this, let me just show you the entire syntax of a procedure. Okay, so I have this, and then I need to have my begin. Okay, and okay, before begin I need to have declare. Okay, and then I need to have begin, and then I can have my end, and I need to close it with the double dollar. Okay, so this is kind of the syntax. Okay, and here we just declare variables. Okay, and then here main block of our code. Okay, and then we can also have exceptions, exception handling here, but I'll not cover exception handling, okay, in this course. But in general, this is the syntax of how to create a procedure. Okay, so okay, maybe this dollar thing I'll explain a little later, but let's try to build a procedure for this. Okay, what I need to do is every time there is a sale and they are telling the sale is only for this particular product. Okay, so this one they have already given iPhone 13 Pro Max. Okay, every time there is a sale, I want to modify the database table. So the only input that they have given, or the information that they have given, is the product that is going to be sold is always going to be iPhone 13 Pro Max. Okay, so the very first thing that I can do here is the different things that I can do is first um, fetch the, okay, because if I go into my products table and if I search for this particular product, okay, I'll get all of this information. I need to update the quantity remaining and quantity sold. Okay, but then I also need to insert some data into the sales table. So into the sales table, I can see here I do not have a product name. Okay, but I have a product code. Okay, and only thing given to us is the product name, so product code is not given. So it looks like using this product name, I need to go into the products table and fetch the product code, and that product code I need to use when I'm loading the data into the sales table. Okay, so I need to fetch the product code from the products table, and along with this I also, I think, need to find the sale price. Okay, so in the products table, for the product name, I will get the price of each product, and also I'll get the product code. So I get these two information from the products table, and then I go into my sales table and I load data into the sales table. Okay, so let's try to do that. Okay, so the first thing is fetch the product code and price for each product from products table. Okay, so this is the first thing here. Okay, and I'll just say first. Okay, and the second thing that I need to do is I need to basically load new data to sales table from the sales table. Okay, and then the third thing that I need to do is update the products table accordingly as per sale. Okay, so these are the three different things that I need to do inside my procedure. Okay, so the very first thing is I need to fetch the product code and the price for each product. Okay, okay, so let's try to write this query. Select from products. Okay, and here I know that my product name is equal to iPhone 13 Pro Max. Okay, because for this particular requirement, they have already told us that we are only interested in this particular product. Okay, whenever uh, this product is getting sold, update the database accordingly. So I can just tell that. Okay, and I'm writing this query because the main thing that I need to do is I need to load data into the sales table, and I need to modify the data from the products table. But in order to load the data into the sales table, I need information about product code and its price, right? And that is what I'm going to fetch from products table. So here I can just tell I'll fetch product code, and I'll fetch the price. Okay, and inside a PLSQL block, whenever you want to fetch data from an SQL query and you want to use it for later purpose in your procedure, right? What we can do is we can fetch the data from any columns from the database and then load it into something called as a variable. Okay, so here I can just use a keyword like into, and then I can create two different variables. I'm just going to say v underscore prod code. Okay, comma v underscore price. Okay, so I'm here using this prefix v underscore just to tell v stands for variable. Okay, now what exactly is a variable? Does anyone know what is a variable? If you have used any other programming language before, you would know what a variable is, because every programming language has something called as a variable. Okay, stores a value. Right, can you also placeholder, uh, value keeps changing. Okay, so in the simplest of terms, whenever you want to reuse a value multiple times in your code, okay, then generally what we do is we kind of store that value into a variable. Okay, now a variable is something that can only store one value. Okay, one value, so one single value. Okay, but sometimes you might have a requirement where you want to store multiple values, okay, with multiple columns. In that case, we have something called as a collection type. Okay, I'll not be covering that, but that is kind of like an advanced concept. But you have, if you want to store multiple values, you can do that using collection types. In some programming languages they call it collection, some programming language they call it like types. Okay, or arrays. Okay, some of them will call it like an array or etc. Okay, but here we only want to store one single value. So my product code gets stored into this v underscore prod code variable, and price will get stored inside the v underscore price variable. Okay. Now, whenever you are going to use a variable inside your main block, you need to first declare this variable, telling that you need to tell that, hey, SQL, I'm going to be using this variable, and this variable needs to be of a particular data type. Okay. So here I need to say this one. Okay. So I need to say v underscore product code, and I need to tell what type of value this variable is going to store. Okay, what is the data type of this variable? So product code, I know that is p1. So p1 basically is a varchar, right? So I can just tell this is going to be a varchar, and let's say maybe 10 characters. Okay, I think here product code will be only 2 characters, but for now let's say I'll give 10. Okay, and the second variable that I have is v price, and v price should generally hold integers, right? So I'm just going to say data type integer. Okay, so I have created these variables so that I can store the product code and price. And since these are variables, I need to first declare them here along with their data type. Okay, so I have done that. Okay, Now once I have got this value, okay, so once I have got this value, the next thing that I need to do is I need to load data into my sales table. So how do I load data into my sales table? Just by using the insert statement, right? Insert into sales, okay, and let's say what my sales table has. So my sales table has all this many columns, okay, but if you noticed my create statement, I had created this order id using the identity function, okay. So by default, every time I load a data, this column will get inserted with the identity value, okay. I have explained identity, I think, in one of my previous classes, okay. So here what I can do is I'll not load data into order id because it is an identity column. By default it gets loaded, but I'll just tell or order date, and then product code, and then quantity ordered, and then comma sale price, okay. So these many columns I want to load data into, and here I'll just tell values. And okay, so what is my order date? So I'm inserting the data today. I'm doing a purchase today, so I'll take today's date, okay. Whenever I want to take today's date, I can use a function called as inbuilt function called as current date, okay. This current date will return today's date, okay. And then my product code. So where is my product code? My product code, I have already stored it into this variable v underscore product code, so I will use it here, okay. And then what about my quantity order? Quantity order in this particular case, let's say this is a very simple procedure. For every, so here they have told that for every iPhone 13 Pro Max, so it's only one iPhone at a time, okay. So by default, I will tell that the quantity ordered is always one, okay, for this particular case, okay. Now I can actually pass dynamically this value by using a parameter, but I will explain about parameter a little later, okay. And then sale price. Sale price is generally quantity ordered into the price of the product, right? So the quantity order is one, I know that. And what is the price of the product that I have taken from the previous step here, right? So this is it. And I think this should basically load the data into my sales table properly. Okay. So once the data is loaded into my sales table, I want to update my products table, right? Because if I go back to my products table, I can see here I have some quantity remaining and quantity sold. I need to update it, right, as soon as a sale happens. So here I can update the table by using the update command. I can just tell update products set. I'll tell quantity remaining equal to. So what should I put here? Can anyone tell me? So I'm going to update the table. As soon as a sale happens, I want to update the quantity remaining. Basically, I want to reduce the quantity remaining by one, right? Because here one of the iPhone was sold, right? So I need to do update products. I need to update quantity remaining, and I also need to update the quantity sold. So quantity sold. Okay. So can anyone tell me what should be the value here? Okay. And here I need to tell where product code equal to whatever product code I have got here. Okay. I can also put the product name here, but let me keep this hard-coded value only for one place. Okay. Now, what should be the quantity remaining? Okay. So the quantity remaining should be quantity minus quantity ordered. So Abhay tells quantity minus quantity ordered. Is that right? Quantity remaining minus one. Okay. So Brent is right. Okay. So basically, my when I do this update and when I put this filter condition, this product code is P1, it's going to fetch this record. From this record, it's going to fetch this quantity remaining. It will be 5, okay? And I want to reduce it by 1. So I can just tell quantity remaining is equal to quantity remaining minus 1. So 5 minus 1, that will be 4, okay? And if I execute this again, in that case, this will be 4. So 4 minus 1 is 3, okay? So it will take care of that particular basically the proper value here, okay. And similarly for quantity sold, I can just tell the quantity sold has to increase by 1, right? So I'll just tell quantity sold plus 1, okay. So this is it, okay. And finally, once I have done my update of my products table, I can give a message, success message to the user telling that the product has been sold successfully. In PostgreSQL, we can do that by using something called as raise notice, and here I can give a message telling that product sold successfully, okay, something like this, okay. And I think that's all. Can I reduce the, can I unzoom this? Is this clear? You guys can see this, right? Because I just wanted to, okay. So you can see here that I have written this procedure. How many lines is it? This is like some 28 lines. Okay. Um, but I hope you understand, right? So we created a procedure, we created two variables, we loaded, we, for the given product, we took the product code and its price, and then we use this product code and the price to load data into our transaction table, that is a sales table. Okay. And then we updated the products table with how many items have been sold. Okay. And then we are displaying a success message. Now let me create this procedure, let's see if this works. Okay. And the procedure has created, you can see it is successful. Okay. Now before I show you the, okay, maybe I will show you the result here, and then just remind me to explain what this double dollar means. Okay. Because this is only required here in PostgreSQL. But the procedure is created. Now in PostgreSQL, if you have to execute a procedure, okay, so if I have to execute a procedure, I'll just tell execute procedure. Okay. The command is, we just need to use the keyword call and then the procedure name. The procedure name is this one along with the parenthesis. Okay. So this one, I think that's all. Okay. So if I execute this, I think the procedure will get executed. Now, before I execute, you just look at the data in the products table. Okay. So let me zoom this a little now just to show you. Okay. So you can see that I have 5 remaining and 195 sold. Okay. And then in the sales table, we can see that only 3 records are there. Okay. Now, when I execute this procedure, so I'm executing it, you can see that I'm getting a notice, basically a message telling that product sold successfully. Okay. And if I go into my products table, the quantity remaining has reduced to 4. Quantity sold has increased by 1 to 196. And in my sales table, I can see that the 4th record has been added. Okay. So for one particular product sold. Okay. So this is when I executed the procedure once. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this procedure 3 different times. Okay. So once, okay, you can see it is successful. Product sold successfully, the message. I'll execute one more time. The second time, again, the product sold successfully. Okay. And now I'll execute it one more time. Okay. Third time. Okay. Now, again, it is product sold successfully. Now, if I go into my products table, I executed it 3 times, remember. Okay. So you can see here, previously it was 4, but since I executed the procedure 3 times, because let's say the store owner, there were 3 different customers who did the purchase, and 3 times that particular application was called. Okay. So this reduced 4, then to 3, then to 2, and then to 1. Okay. And now it's telling quantity remaining only 1, quantity sold is only 199. Okay. And then in the sales table, I can see 3 new records added. So there are 7 different records. Okay. So multiple different things we are doing just by calling this particular procedure. Okay. Now I'll call this procedure one more time. Okay. And here it's telling product sold successfully because I knew there was still one product remaining. Okay. Now when I execute it, okay, so now you see here the product is, quantity remaining is 0 and total sold is 200, and sales I have 8 records. Okay. Now when I execute the procedure again, can anyone tell me what will happen? Anyone? Because you guys told that we need to write a procedure which is going to load data into the sales table and update the products table, right? Were we supposed to do something extra? Did we need to do certain checks? Okay. So here you are telling this will execute. Okay. But it is going to throw error. Some of you are telling no execution, throw error, should give error saying not available. Okay. Or minus value. Okay. Okay. Need to put check. Okay. Um, okay, fine. So I think you guys understand what is happening, right? You understand the flow. Okay. Ideally, when I execute this procedure again, it should basically, it should not fail, it should not throw an error, because why should it throw an error? What is an error? When there is something wrong, you throw an error. This is not something wrong. The product is just not available. Means the stock is over, right? So it should give a meaningful message to the user telling that, hey, the stock is not available, so you cannot make this purchase. That would make more sense, right? Because let's say you go to an store and tell that there is no iPhone, but when they check in their application, if they get error, it's not right. They should get a message telling that, hey, product is not available. That makes more sense, right? For now, since we have not handled those things in our procedure, let's see what happens. So when I call this procedure, the procedure is still successful. Okay. but and it's still telling product sold successfully. Okay, so now let's go back to my products table, and you can see here it's become -1. This basically means our data is now corrupted. Okay, how can anyone tell that quantity remaining is -1? It does not make sense, right? So here the data is corrupted now. Okay, and quantity sold is 201. Okay, and in the sales table you can see that a new record has been added. Okay, so what this means is, when you're writing this kind of a code, it's not just about writing the code to do what it needs to do. In several times we will need to do certain validation, certain checks. Okay, our code should only process certain things only if certain other things are successful, right? This is a very essential part of writing code. Okay, whether it is in PLSQL, whether it is in Python, Java, or whatever. Okay, you will need to do certain validations before you can kind of process certain whatever you need to do, right? So in this particular case, I can modify this procedure to do certain checks. Okay, but I told you, right, we generally use a procedure whenever we need to build a logic. Okay, and so for example, okay, procedure generally used to build a logic. Okay, and then we have something. Okay, so some people call it like a stored procedure. Okay, procedure or stored procedure, they basically are or procedure. Okay, they basically are the same. Okay, in different database, I think in Microsoft SQL Server it is called as stored procedure. In Oracle, I think it is called as procedure. Okay, but they are the same. Okay, and then we have something called as user defined function. Okay, or some people in some this one you just call it like a function. Okay, so this is something where generally use to calculate calcu, calculate some values and return it, or use to check certain conditions. Okay, so something like this. Okay, so I'm just giving you a simple explanation where you should need to use a procedure and when you should be using a function. Okay, we use a procedure when we need to build a logic. Okay, and we use a function whenever we need to do certain calculations. Okay, or you need to do certain checks. Okay, and the main difference between a procedure and a function is that a function will always return a value. When you execute a function, it is going to return you back something. Okay, when I executed this procedure, of course it gave me back this message, but this message is not actually, it's not kind of like you can treat it like a return. It's just, this is not mandatory. If I had removed this raise notice, if I had commented, even then my procedure would work. Okay, but in a function, mandatory, always it's going to return something. Okay, so for example, what are the functions that you are aware of? Can you tell me any functions that you are aware of? Anyone? Sum, right? Okay, sum is a function, right? So for example, if I go here, select sum of price from products. Okay, and if I execute this, it's returning me something back, right? I executed a function and it's returning me something back. Okay, sum is also a function, but sum is a inbuilt function. So when I say inbuilt function, as soon as you install a database, this is already created by the database, so you don't need to create some function. Okay, but a user defined function is something that we can create on our own. We can create our own. I can also create my own sum function. Okay, maybe with different name, but maybe it can do some additional things. Okay, it's up to me. I can create any function that I want. Okay, but the thing is, a function will always return a value. Okay, a procedure does not have to return a value. It can or it cannot. Okay, but the main reasons we use function is whenever we want to check something, and let's say if the check is successful, then I want it to return true. If the check is not successful, then I want it to return false. Okay, or something like that. Okay, that is when we use a function stored procedure to build logics. Okay, so in this particular case, what I want to do is, whenever I am trying to call, whenever I'm trying to do a purchase. Okay, I want to purchase a product. I want to first check if that product is available, and not just the product. Maybe the customer might ask to purchase 5 iPhones or 10 iPhones or 2 iPhones or 1 iPhones or whatever, based, and they might check for a certain specification, right? A different color, a different storage, and whatever, right? So my check function should be able to check all of that. Okay, in this case we'll check just for the quantity and the product name. Okay, so what I can do is I'll try to build a function which is going to do this check. Okay, so let's see how to create a function in PostgreSQL. The syntax is again very simple. Okay, now before I show you the syntax for function, right, let me explain you this double dollar. Okay, can anyone tell me in this procedure why do we use this double dollar here? Anyone? It doesn't even know. I put a double dollar here and I put a double dollar at the end of the this one. Does anyone know why? Um, okay. So the thing is, this is just I think required in PostgreSQL, not required in other RDBMS. Okay, it's just that inside your procedure, if you had any um, single quote values, okay, any value where you are using a single quote, okay, not this is basically I'm passing a varchar. Okay, but let's say inside this if I had something like a value where a single quote was part of that value, then this procedure would not work. Okay, this is just to handle those special characters. Okay, so certain special characters, if you don't provide this, cannot be handled by PostgreSQL by default. That is why we have this. Okay, for example, let's say I'm going to show you an example. Let's say I want to display I am Taufik. Okay, so I want to display, and this will be, let's say, my name. Okay, so I want to display this one, I am Taufik. Okay, but here you can see that I'm having a single quotes here. Okay, so since this is a varchar or a text, I need to enclose my entire text inside a single quotes, right? So when I enclose this entire thing inside my single quotes, and if I execute this, it's going to throw an error. Okay, why? My entire text was this one, I am Taufik. And since it's a text, I need to enclose it inside a single quotes. But here what happens is one single quote was captured by SQL and another one was captured. As soon as it finds another single quotes, it kind of thinks that this is the end of the text. Okay, but actually it was not the end of the text. My text should have ended here. Okay, but SQL is not able to identify that. Okay, now there are few different ways of doing that. Okay, one of the ways of doing that is whenever you have a single quotes inside your text, okay, you can just make it two single quotes. Okay, by making it two single quotes inside a text, whenever SQL is going to find two single quotes, it's going to kind of understand that this is kind of like needs to be treated like a single quote, one single quote. It's like one way of escaping uh, a single quote. Okay, now if I execute this, now it will work. Here you can see that if you can clearly see, you can see here this single quote is still part of my output. Okay, so I am Taufik, this works. Okay, so whenever you want to put, whenever your value needs to have a single quote inside a text, you can put two single quotes, then it will work. Okay, this is one way of doing it. Okay, but of course there are multiple different ways of doing it. The other way of doing that is by, what I can do is I can put a escape character here. Okay, now this backslash is kind of like always used to um, represent a escape character. Okay, and it's not just for single quote, anything you can escape by using this backslash. Okay, but in PostgreSQL, if you're using an escape character, you also need to specify a e here. Okay, this e stands for escape character. This is kind of like before your text you need to have this, and then if you have this e before your text, and then if you have any backslash, SQL will come to know that any character that comes after the backslash is an escape character. Hence, when the output will be displayed, it will not print this backslash, but it will only print the character that comes after this backslash. Okay, so if I execute this, you can see that it's still printing the same output. Okay, that is fine. Now there is another way and a more easier way of printing this. Okay, and that is in PostgreSQL only, I think. Okay, and that is instead of having all of these two single quotes, and here what I can do is I can, instead of enclosing my text within a single quotes, I can also enclose my text inside double dollar. Okay, so I can put double dollar here. Okay, and then what will SQL will do is whatever you have mentioned inside the double dollar, it's going to print as it is. Okay, now if I execute this, you can see that it works. Okay, so this is what double dollar does. Okay, so even inside our procedure, when we use double dollar, it's basically telling that whatever is mentioned here, you use it as it is given. Okay, even if inside your code you had a text where a single quote was present, SQL will be able to read it. Okay, so this is just like an additional thing that you need to tell so that SQL is able to read your code as given. Okay, it's not actually required for other database, and to be frank, I don't know why this was even required for PostgreSQL. I think just PostgreSQL should have been able to interpret this. Okay, even this language, I'm not sure why PostgreSQL needs it. Okay, certain programming languages use certain additional things which are not required, and that is why Python is very famous, because Python doesn't have unnecessary things. Okay, the syntax of Python is very simple. Everything is, only the things that is actually required is present. All the unnecessary things have been removed. If you go to Java, there are a lot of unnecessary syntax that you have to follow, right, for your code to work, right? But in Python, they're all eliminated. Okay, and that is why Python is very easy to learn. Okay, but here you can see these are all unnecessary things, in my opinion. Okay, I don't know what is the exact reason that you need to specify what is a language. By default, we understand that if it is a procedure, it's a procedural language. Why do we need to specify that, right? And if I'm writing a procedure, why should I put this? Okay, it's hopefully PostgreSQL should be able to understand that. Okay, but anyways, that is the meaning of double dollar. I hope you guys understand this. Okay, now let's move on to my creation of the what is that, my function. Okay, here I'll do one thing. I'll just comment out this one. Okay, or maybe I'll comment out in multiple lines here. Okay. So now we need to write a function which is going to do a check. If whenever I am going to purchase a product, it needs to first check if the product for the given quantity is available or not, right? Let's do that. So I'm just going to say create or replace. Okay, now what is this or replace, by the way? Does anyone know why am I using this or replace here? If it exists. Okay, so the thing is, if I execute this procedure again and again, it's going to work. Okay, you can see here I already executed it multiple times. It works. It works because I have this statement or replace. What SQL will do is, if the procedure with this name and this argument set, if this procedure already exists, then it's going to just replace that procedure. Okay, if I had not used this or replace, and if I try to execute this, okay, it's going to throw an error telling that the procedure already exists. Okay, so that is why, to eliminate that error, we generally use this or replace. Okay, it's just that if it's kind of like a replica of this if exists, what we use in create table. Okay, so that is what or replace is. Let's create this function, create or replace function. Function name fn underscore check if prod exist. Okay, some big name but some meaningful name, right? So here I'm just telling I'm creating a function to check if the product exists. Okay, and here I want to give two arguments. I want to check for a given product and for the given quantity. So I'm just going to say p underscore product name. Okay, and so this is actually a parameter that I'm adding. Okay, the parameter is kind of like an argument that basically it's a value that you can pass when you're calling your function or a procedure, and you can use this value inside your function. Okay, so let's see how that works. But whenever you give an parameter, you need to specify what data type it belongs to. Okay, so here I'm just going to say my product name is varchar. Okay, and then the next argument is p underscore what is that, quantity, um, quantity, right? Okay, the I'll just tell quantity, p underscore quantity, and this will be integer. Okay, so this is my create or replace function name. Okay, and then for a function, I told you that it will always have a return statement, right? So that is why there is one additional syntax here. I need to say returns. I need to tell when I execute this function what the value that it's going to return, what data type it is. Okay, so here let's say I'm just going to call it like maybe varchar. Okay, so and then I'll tell again, I need to say language. This is language pl pg sql pg SQL. Okay, as, and then here again I need to have my dollar symbol. Okay, and here I can have my declare if I want, begin, and then my end, and then close my dollar. Okay, so this is my syntax. Okay, what I want to do is, if the product exists, I want it to return true. If does not exist, I want it to return false, right? So I'll go here. Okay, and how do I check if a product exists or not? Can anyone tell me? How do I know if a product exists or not? Not null, if count greater than 0, right? So basically I need to write an SQL query, right? So I can just tell, I just going to select from products table, where I just tell product name equal to whatever this. Here also you can see that I have prefixed this parameter name with p underscore. So p stands for a parameter. Okay, just if you follow this kind of naming convention, it is going to help you to, when you write big code, it will help you to know what each of these values are. Okay, so I'll just tell this one p underscore product name. Okay, and I need to check if the quantity. Okay, so if I do a select star from my products table, you can see that I'm having this much. I'm checking for this product name will come from my parameter. Okay, and I need to check for the quantity. Okay, so now here the data is corrupted. First of all, let me recreate this table, okay, with the proper data. Okay, because I corrupted the data, so I'll do one thing. I need to give this data set, right? I'll have this data set given here. I'll execute this. Okay, so now I'll go back to my function. I'll just zoom in a little so I can put more text into this window. Okay. Uh, okay, so now if I look at my products table, I can see that I have the product name and I have the quantity remaining. I need to check. So let's say if the quantity here, they will ask for 10 iPhones. Okay. If they ask for 10, then I want this query to return 0. Okay. But if they ask for, let's say 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5, then it should be fine because I have up to 5 quantities remaining, right? So what I can just tell is quantity remaining. Okay. So quantity remaining is less than or equal to p quantity. Okay, so if p quantity, let's say if they ask for 5, here quantity remaining, I know it is 5. 5 less than equal to 5 is successful. So this should hopefully return me some count value, probably 1. Okay, because there is one record available here. Okay, so here I can just tell count of 1. Okay, but let's say if they ask for 6 product, they want 6 iPhones. Okay, when they pass in the parameter, when I'm calling this function here, they will pass 6, and since they are passing in this parameter 6, this parameter will be used here. Okay, so here this query will check for this particular product, if 5 is less than or equal to 6, this will be false, so this count will return me 0. Okay, when it is 0, I want this function to return that false. Okay, so when the check is false, meaning that product is the product is out of stock. Okay, something like that, right? So this count, I want to again store it into a variable. I'm just going to say v underscore count, and since I'm having this variable, I need to declare the variable first. Okay, and I'll just tell count, and this will be an integer. Okay, and I think that is fine. So this should basically give me the data if the product is available or not. And then what I want to do is I want to have a if statement here. Okay, so this if is very similar to the case statement that we have used in our SQL. So I'm just going to say if v count is greater than 0, okay, then I want it to display something, right? Not display because it's a function. I want it to return something. So I'll just say return, and since I'm going to return a varchar here, okay, um, okay, so maybe we'll try to see if Boolean works. Okay, so I'll make this like Boolean, and here I will tell if it is greater than 0. So when it is greater than 0, meaning that the product is available, right? So I'm just going to say true. Okay, else, okay, else by default it will be basically less than 0 or basically equal to 0, right? If it is else, I want it to return false. Okay, and I think and if, Okay, so that's all. So I told you that a function should always return a value. Here you can see that my function, I have told that this function is going to return a Boolean data type. Okay, and here I am doing a check using the query, telling that if the product and for the given quantity is available or not. If it is available, this count will always be greater than zero. If it is not available, this count is going to be zero because it will not find any record, right? If it is greater than zero, I'll return true. If it is less than zero, I'll return false. Okay, so first of all, let's see if this function actually works. Okay, so I'm going to execute this function. Okay, I'm getting an error, return false. Okay, so I need to close this statement. So for every statement that you have inside your procedure or a function, you need to close it by using a semicolon. Okay, so this is a statement. Statement is basically what is a statement? It's like it's one whole statement. Okay, so one whole expression or something like that. Okay, this if is not here, I don't need a semicolon because my if statement will end after I mention end if, right? So only for end if I need the semicolon. Okay, my entire query will end here. This entire thing is one statement, and that is why it has a semicolon here. Okay, so I think that's fine. Now let's see if this works. Okay, now the function has been created. Okay, now how do you execute a function? Okay, so we executed a procedure by using this call statement. Okay, but if I have to execute a function, so if I have to execute a function, okay, the function can be executed just by using a select statement. Okay, so I can just tell select, provide the function name, and then you provide the parameters. Okay, so the parameters, I have two parameters for this function. So I have the product name and I have the quantity. Okay, so here I'll just tell my function is this one. My product name, I'm just going to use the same product that I was given. Okay, so that is this one. Okay, so I'll pass this product name, and the quantity, let's say I'll just tell one. Okay, and now let me run this function, and when I run this function, it's telling false. Okay, so iPhone 13 Pro Max, it's telling false. Can anyone tell me why it is returning false? So I did this. Okay, so when I called this function, it should have gone here. Okay, and from the products table, it should have checked for that product for this particular quantity. Did I do something wrong? Can anyone tell me, did I do something wrong here? Okay, okay, okay. So I think Ramesh and Sai, you guys are right. So I did this reverse. It should not be less than, it should be greater than or equal to. Because here the quantity is 5. I passed the required quantity as 1. So 5 is greater than or equal to 1. Okay. So my mistake. But I think now it should be fine. So let me execute this function now. Okay. And now let me call my function, and now you can see that it's returning true. So when I pass quantity as 1, it's returning true. Let's say if I pass 4, it's going to pass 2. But let's say now if I pass 6, okay, I know that only 5 is remaining. Now it's going to return false. Hopefully if I use this function in my procedure, it's going to work fine. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this function. I'll go back to my procedure. Okay, what I'll do is I'll keep this one. Okay, this procedure is like um, just to make it more neater. Okay, I'll remove this execute procedure from here because I need to give it as notes, right? I don't want to confuse you guys. So this is how you execute a procedure. Okay, and I'll call it like initial version of the procedure. Okay, without checking if product exists. Okay, so this is the initial version of the procedure. Okay, and then let me move this execute function. Okay, and let me move this execution of function here. Okay, and now let's say version procedure version 2. Okay, um, including the check if product exists or not. Okay, so just some comments, so tomorrow when you look at the notes, you understand why I have two different procedures. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this whole procedure. So I'll copy this whole procedure, including the execute statement. Okay. And I'll put it here. Okay. And then I'm going to modify the procedure. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, where is my, okay, this is my query to check if the product exists, right? So I'll basically call this function inside my procedure. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, all of the things that I'm doing here is fine. Okay, that should stay as it is. The only thing is I want to do an additional check. Okay, so here I want to check if product exists. Okay, and I'll put this select statement here. Okay, and I don't need a from clause here because this is a function. It's not fetching data from any table. Inside the function it might use some table, that's a different thing. Okay, and then here I can just put an into clause telling that into I'll just tell v underscore check. Okay, so this will basically return true or false. If it is true, then only I need to process the procedure. If it is false, then I want to display a message telling that product not available or something like that, right? So what I'll do is, whatever I have been doing here, okay, I will keep it as it is, no changes. Okay, I'll just put a if statement here telling that if v underscore check is true. Okay, if v underscore check is true, okay, then I want okay, then I want all this execute. But before that, let's say I'll check for false. Okay, so if it is false, okay, then I want to raise a notice. So I'll just tell raise notice, and I'll tell product not available. Okay, so I want it to display something like this, product not available. Okay, and else if it is true, if the vcheck will return true, if this function returns true, okay, then in the else part I basically want to do all of these things. Okay, so what I'll do is, just to make it more clear, I'll move this to the right. Okay, using the tab character. So I move this to the right. So inside the else part, all of these things will get executed, and finally I need to close my end if. So end if here. Okay, so this else starts here and this ends here. Okay, I think that's all. Probably this should work. Okay, and I'm just going to execute my procedure, entire thing. Okay, and I'm getting an error. Can anyone tell me why I'm getting an error? Anyone? Okay, declare variable, correct. So this variable I'm using it here, but have not declared it here because SQL does not know what is v underscore check, right? So I need to declare it here, v underscore check, and this will be a boolean, right? So I'll just tell boolean. Okay, now if you're using Oracle, I think boolean data type is not supported, so instead of boolean, try to use varchar. Okay, so I think that's all, and let me execute this, and I'm still getting an error. Can anyone tell me why am I getting an error here? Anyone? What can be the error here? If should in last. Semicolon. Okay, so Brent is right. I missed a semicolon here, right? This is a statement. After every statement, you need to have a semicolon. Okay, it's a very common error that we always get in our code. Okay, so we run this, and now the procedure is successful. Okay, so now what I want to do is, okay, by default, I'm only purchasing one, this one. And let me execute this. Okay, so but before I execute, I want to show you the data in the table. So where is the data in the table? That is these two. Okay, so let me have that here. Okay, in my products table I have 5 and 195, and here I have 3 records only. Okay, and now let me, when I execute the procedure, hopefully a product should get sold, right? So if I execute this, I'm getting a message telling like product not available. So something is wrong, right? Because in my procedure, you can see that I'm only taking one product, and here by default, I'm only trying to purchase one product, right? But still, when I'm calling this procedure, it's not telling product successful, it's telling product not available. If I go into my products table, you can see that it's still 5, not no updates and have happened. In the sales, no data has been loaded. Okay, so can anyone guess? Let me zoom in a little. Okay, can anyone guess what is wrong in this procedure? I must this. Let me go back here. So I'll close this. Okay, where was I? Okay, this is my procedure. Can anyone tell me what is wrong in this procedure? You are passing 6. Okay, correct, right? What happened was I did a typo here. That is when I was calling this function, okay, by default I'm passing 6. I don't want it to pass 6, right? Because here in this procedure I built it only to purchase one product, so I should basically be checking for one, right? uh, so hopefully now it should be fine, because if I pass one then it will return true, then all the updates should happen, right? So let me execute this procedure one more time. Okay, and now let me execute the procedure. So now it's telling product sold successfully. If I go into my products table, now it is reduced from 5 to 4 and 196 here, and in the sales table a new record has been inserted. Okay, now if I execute the procedure, let's say 4 times, 1 2 3 4, okay, 4 times I executed it. Now hopefully the product should be 0. You can see it is 0 here, and product sold is 200, and in my sales table I have all of these new records added. Okay, now when I execute the procedure, hopefully my check function should do its work, and it should check that the product is not available, and it should return that product not available. So now when I execute it, now it's telling that product not available. Okay, if I go into my products table, it's not moving into negative value, it's still saying the same. Okay, so this is basically how I fixed my initial procedure. Okay, so my procedure is now able to check if the product is available, and only if it is available, then only it will process the purchase. Okay, is this clear so far? Did you guys understand everything so far? The whole flow, right? Anyone who is not clear? Okay, all good. Now let's modify this procedure to make it even more usable. Okay, what I'm doing in this procedure is I'm basically always trying to purchase just one product. Okay, and in my table also I have only one product. But what if my table grew? In that store initially they only had iPhone, but let's say they added more products. Okay, and what if you want customer to allow them to purchase multiple products? Okay, or multiple quantity of the product. Okay, in that case, let's enhance it. But in order to enhance this, let me add some records into my table. Okay, so let me get the data set for that. Okay, so I have this table here, I have this, and enhancing the procedure to purchase any given product and any number of quantity. Okay, for that I'll use this data set. Okay, so I will, it's the same table, just more records. Okay, so I will execute this. This is executed. Okay, now if I look into my these two tables, so if I go down here, now in the products table, you can see that I have 4 different products: iPhone 13 Pro Max, AirPods Pro, MacBook Pro 16, and iPad Air, and all the other information about how many is remaining, how many sold is present here. In my sales table, I have some additional transactions that has happened related to these products. Okay, so all of that I have. Okay, now what I need to do is I have my procedure written. Okay, uh, this one, right? So what I do is I'll copy this same procedure. Okay, and I will reuse the same procedure. Okay, so I'll put it here. Okay, and what I want to do is procedure version 3. Okay, with parameters. Okay, so with parameters, something like this. Okay. Now what I want is it should be able to purchase any given product for any number of quantity, right? What I need to do basically here is, if you see here in my main query here, I'm basically hard coding the product name. Okay, I don't want to do this hard coding. Okay, if I only had the requirement to purchase one iPhone 13 Pro Max, then this procedure will work. As soon as I want to purchase some other product, I will again come need to make the modification in the code. Okay, so generally we try to avoid hard coding of values, because every time the requirement might change, so that even if there is new requirement added, new enhancement added, new data loaded, then also our code should work without any changes. Okay, and that is why instead of hard coding a value here, I can basically use a parameter. Okay, so what I can do is, when I'm creating this procedure itself, I can pass couple of parameter. One parameter can be something like product name. Okay, and this will be varchar. Okay, and then I can pass another product parameter called as p quantity. Okay, and this can be integer. Okay, and then what I will do is, wherever I'm trying to provide the product name, instead of providing this hard-coded product name, I'll pass this parameter. So when I'm calling this function, instead of hard coding it to iPhone 13 Pro Max, I'll pass this parameter, that is product name, and here also I will pass this uh, parameter p quantity. Okay, and all of these are input parameters. We also have something called as an output parameter. So there are generally two types of parameters. Okay, input parameter and output parameter. By default, these are input parameters. Okay, I can also have another parameter called as an output parameter. Okay, that will basically, if I want to display the error message or some value once a once the procedure is executed, if I want to display something in the output, then I can put it inside the output parameter. And generally we can tell like something like p error, and this can be like out uh, and varchar, something like this. We can display the output parameter. Okay, I'll not cover it now. Maybe if possible, maybe I'll cover it in the next class, or I'll see it. Okay, but in most cases, not everyone uses output parameter until and unless you are an ETL developer or an SQL developer. If you're an analyst, data scientist, data engineer, mostly you will mainly be using input parameter. Okay, but anyways, I'll finish this first, and then maybe I'll come to output parameter later. Okay, so I have this input parameter to pass the product name and the quantity, and I will be using the same product name and quantity when I'm calling my function to check if this particular product is available and if this quantity is available. Okay, if the check is successful, okay, then if the check is successful, that means if the product is available, it will go into my else part, and here it will try to uh, fetch the product name and its price, right? Product code and its price. So here, instead of hard coding product name, I'll give my product name from the parameter. Okay, that's one change here. Okay, and the second thing is everything else can stay same, and here I'm passing product code and v product code, v price. uh, Okay, so this next thing is uh, here the quantity, right? Previously we were only purchasing one product, but now I am giving a parameter so the user can tell how many products he wants to purchase, one, two, three, four, or whatever, right? So this quantity will have the actual quantity. So when I'm doing the update into my products table, the quantity remaining, previously I was just subtracting one product at a time, but now I want to subtract it based on the given quantity, right? So if the given quantity is 2, if they want to purchase two products, then here it will be 2 minus 1. Oh, sorry, not this quantity remaining minus this one, p quantity. Okay, so this will be 5 remaining, and 5 minus 2 is 3, so this should be 3. Okay, so here instead of hard coding 1, I will pass the quantity that was given by the user. So here also I'll put it p quantity. Okay, and I think that's all. And one more thing here, even when I'm doing the sales, the quantity ordered, by default I was passing it like hard coding it to 1, but now I'll pass the p quantity, and here also I'll pass p quantity. Okay, so I think that's all probably. Now let me execute this procedure, and the procedure is executed, and I hope this will work. So now what I will do is, I'll go back and I will query the data from these two tables. Okay, so okay, so I have this many products. Okay, now, and I have this many sales already. Now I want to purchase a product. Can you tell me which product you would like me to purchase? You guys tell which product you would like me to purchase and how much quantity. Anyone? Okay, so AirPods. So I'll just copy the same name. Okay, I'll put it here. AirPods Pro. Okay, and how many quantity? Okay, 4. So I'll tell 4. Okay, so I'll pass 4, and you can see here AirPods I have 10 remaining, 90 have been sold. Okay, so hopefully when I execute this, it should be 10 minus 4. So after I purchase 4, 6 should still be remaining, right? So let me execute this. Okay. And product sold successfully. So it is successful. Now if I go into my products table, you can see here AirPods Pro. So AirPods Pro, it was 10. Now it is reduced to 6. Okay. And 94 have been sold. And if I go into my sales table, a new record has been added. This one, I think. Yeah. And the quantity sale price also is like 1116. I think each AirPods Pro was some 250 or something. Okay, so this has increased accordingly. Okay, so each product was how much? 279. So 279 into 4 is something that I'm getting. Okay, but now let's say if I execute this again I purchased 4 AirPods. Okay, and now if I go back, you can see that AirPods is now reduced to 2. Okay, and the sale also, I think I'll have a 12th record here with this sale amount. Okay, now when I execute this AirPods Pro again, now it's telling product not available. Okay, because I'm trying to find purchase 4 AirPods, but only 2 is remaining, right? So if I go here, now AirPods Pro still it is 2. Okay, and the sold is 98. Okay, and in the sales no record has been inserted. Okay, but let's say instead of 4, if I put 2. Okay, and if I execute this, now it is successful, product sold successfully, because in the products table AirPods had, there were 2 remaining, and now it has become 0, and product sold is 100. And in the sales table you can see that I have it, there are 13 remaining, 13 transactions added. Okay, so I think our time is almost up, and this is how I have added parameter into my procedure, and I was able to not only purchase iPhone but any product that I want and any number of quantity I want. Okay, why duplicate records coming in sales? These are not duplicate records. Okay, you can see here, this is for the same product. It's one transaction with purchase 4. Okay, this is having a different order ID. Okay, on the same product on the same day, uh, someone might purchase two different products, right? Why not someone? I myself, I might go to the shop and purchase. In the morning I might buy one product, and in the afternoon I might go and I might buy the same product again, right? So it's not duplicate here. The primary key is order ID. Okay, so these are all different orders. Can you please explain once more out parameter over procedure? Okay, so I'll try to explain out parameter maybe in the next class. Okay, I'll try to give you with an example. Okay, since the time is up today, I just want to see if anyone has any questions. I see 5 Q&A already. If procedure doesn't return values, what is the use of out parameter? Okay, good question, but generally we use out parameter to return error messages. Okay, so here you see, here I have not actually handled exception handling, because I didn't want to handle exception handling, because inside procedure there are a lot of things. Okay, that is why I did not want to cover out parameter here. So I'll tell you what are the other things. Okay, different things we can have inside a procedure or function. Okay, so can anyone tell, what do you guys think, what are the different? So what have we used in our procedure? We have basically used SQL, we have used DML statements, we have used if else statement, we have used variables, right? Other than this, what else have we used? Or can you guess what else can we use? Okay, catch and block, basically exception handling, right? We can do exception handling. Okay, what else? Loops. Okay, we can have loop statements. Okay, like for loop, okay, or I think in some databases while loop as well. Okay, and then what else? Array. Okay, so arrays. Okay, arrays, or some databases might call it like collections. Okay, and some might call it like types. Okay, what else? Recursion is part of SQL, so anything that is supported in SQL, you can use it inside PLSQL. That is fine. Okay, cursor, yes, we can use cursors. Okay, what else? Anything else? We can use triggers also. Trigger is also part of SQL, so we can use trigger as well. Okay, um, okay, trigger is actually a PLSQL block. Okay, so maybe not part of SQL, but you can use triggers inside procedure. Yes. What else? Anything else? Actually, there can be much more. Okay, exception handling, loops, statement, cursors, uh, out parameters, out parameters, meters. Okay, and in some databases we also have in out parameters. Okay. Um, yeah, you can also have DDL statements. Okay, so DDL statements. Okay, and then we can have dynamic state state statements. Okay, using maybe execute, immediate, or etc. Okay, etc. Okay. There are actually a lot more. I don't remember everything. Merge is again part of SQL. You can it's part of DML, right? So you can use DML. You can use DC. DCL is what? DCL is grant. Yeah, you can use DCL also. Okay. Um, you can use TCL also, but not inside a function. But you can use inside procedure. But yeah, okay. So these are etc etc. Okay, there are a lot more you can use, but of course I'm not going to be covering all of this because the course was about SQL, not mainly about PLSQL. Probably in the future I will make a course on PLSQL, but generally PLSQL is mainly used by someone who wants to get into to become a SQL developer. Okay, so if you want to become an SQL developer or an ETL developer, then maybe yes, you would be using all of this. But if you just want to become data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, I don't think so you generally would use this. Then also depends on the company. Who knows, there might be a company where a data analyst is expected to write a package or a procedure, so then it's a different thing. Can we call the user defined function from procedure code? Yes, you can do that. I already did this, right? So inside this procedure I'm already calling this user defined function, and inside your procedure, can you call inside your function, can you call a procedure? I think you can call, but there are certain restrictions. Okay, like you cannot have a DML statement inside a function and certain things. Okay, they expect you to know everything for any job. Not really. Okay, depends on what your job needs. Okay, in my current job, if you in the current project that I'm working, if you we need big data developers, okay, or ETL developers, and we want them to know SQL, but we don't really need them to know PLSQL. Okay, because they will be using SQL, but they don't really be using PLSQL concepts, all of these concepts that we mentioned here. Okay. um, any calculations, right? So user defined functions. So let's say you have a requirement where you have a given name and you want to find how many vowel characters are present in your name. Let's say you have that kind of a requirement, then you would write a function, and there can be many other examples. Okay, they ask for Java, Python, including SQL. Depends. Different companies will have different requirements. In my company, the requirement is Hadoop. All these big data technologies like Hadoop. Most importantly, you need to know Talent ETL tool, and then you need to know SQL. Okay. And in my previous company, the requirement was different. So different companies, different requirements, but you learn the basic SQL. You I can guarantee you that in most of the IT jobs, everyone uses SQL. So SQL is something that will always benefit. Okay. I think that's all for today's class, everyone. I'm just going to look at the Q&A here. How to send email functionality in procedure code like other programming languages. You can do that. I will not be covering that, Ramesh. It's a procedure supported a recursive procedure or nested procedure. You can have nested procedure. It is all supported. Can we use the looping or decision statement in the procedure? Like, yes, you can use that. Okay, that is very commonly used in every procedure. Can we do functions inside procedure and procedure inside? Yes, you can do that. Okay, I already did this. We use functions inside procedure. Okay, that will work all the time. But the other way around, there are certain restrictions. A function cannot modify the state of the database. It cannot modify the data, okay, in your tables. So you cannot have a commit or a rollback. Okay, you cannot have DML operations in some of the databases. Certain rules are there you need to follow. Okay, how to parameterize the constant value in the procedure or function code at the runtime? Just by using the parameter, right? So we saw the parameter example here using that. Okay. Okay, so I think that's all for today's class. Did you guys understand procedure, functions, the whole flow? This kind of like a simple mini use case that I showed you here. Okay, even though it might be a mini use case, trust me, I have actually built projects where I have done exactly something like this, not for purchasing products, but for the finance domain. Okay, so I do not have assignments for today. Maybe you can focus on the assignment that I gave in the last class. I'll give you the solution for that assignment in the next class. Okay. Okay. So I think first of all, let me copy all of this and put it into the notes. This is session 19. Okay, so I think that's all. In tomorrow's class, I'll try to show you the syntax for all of these procedures in other RDBMS. Okay, there is slight difference in other RDBMS. We'll try to see that. Also, the syntax for recursive SQL query in other RDBMS, we'll see that. And then we'll get into a simple project. Okay. Now, when I say SQL project, do not expect that I'm going to be building a database. I'm going to be, I'm going to be building an application, or I'm going to be doing visualizations. I'll not be doing all of that, because SQL projects are different from your Python projects or your data analytics projects. Okay. So we'll just take a data set, we'll try to analyze the data set, and we'll try to write some SQL queries to solve or answer some of the questions from that data set. Okay, that is what the project is about. Okay. Inbuilt functions, when will you share? I'll try to share the list of inbuilt functions probably before the last class, Shiva. Okay, I remember that. One more thing. Have you seen the Light Hall class page? I have added a new session for this Saturday. Okay, so this Saturday, that's going to be the last session. Okay, the timing is different. Okay, just check the timing. I think it is 1.5 hours or 2 hours after the from our current timing. Okay, because it was a weekend, I do not have office, so I can take the class little later, so it will be convenient for people in India also. So just check the timing, and that session is going to be a Q&A sessions, because I know there are a lot of questions that I have not answered. There is a user TASSR. I don't know what is his name, but if TASSR is here, just tell me what your name is, bro. uh, so you have asked a couple of questions in Discord. I think I'll try to answer that. Sandeep has shared a question in, where was it, in Telegram. I'll answer that. Ramesh has asked a question about some nested case statement or something. I'll try to answer that. Do we have predefined tool to debug the big SQL code like other? Generally, to debug the code, you can do it in any IDE. Okay, SQL developer, PLSQL developer, etc. You can do the debug. Okay, and then okay. Also, there are some questions that I have not answered. I'll try to answer that in a Q&A session. If there are any other questions that you want to ask me, then that session 21 that I have created is the session for that. Okay, any questions, any doubts that you have, I'll try to answer that. Okay, that is going to be the last session on this Saturday. Okay. Okay, so I think that's all, guys, for today. I'll see you all again tomorrow. Okay, thank you everyone, and bye. So let me